Welcome to St Catherine's Hospice Tree of Light service. My name's Lisa and I'm the chaplain and lead for spiritual support at the hospice. As this will be my 6th year of welcoming people to this service, I know that my face will no doubt be familiar to some of you, albeit a little closer up on the screen than it usually is on the stage at Crawley's K2 Leisure Centre. Others though, you will be here for the first time. In a year like no other, and when we are unable to be physically present with one another, I want to welcome each of you here just as warmly as I would do in person, and give you some idea of what to expect of our time together. Against a background of crisis, fear, and national loss this year, we've not been able to mark our own individual losses in the ways in which we might have liked. We're conscious too that we're approaching a Christmas when many of us are separated from our family and our friends. And although we're unable to welcome you to a physical event, we want to give you an opportunity to gather remotely with others in our community, to acknowledge how this feels, to remember our loved ones, and perhaps find some comfort in the readings, stories and music we will share with you here. Many of you will have received stars like this one in the post, and you may have sent one of these in to the hospice to us, or have them to hang on your tree at home. During our time together, we're going to dedicate these stars to those who we are remembering especially this Christmas time. The poet Michael Rosen, in his book Sad, describes what it can feel like when someone who we love has died. For him, it was his son, Eddie. Tom Abbott, who heads up fundraising here at St Catherine's Hospice, is going to read an extract from that book for us now.
Sometimes sad is very big. It's everywhere, all over me. Sometimes I want to talk about all this to someone, like my mum, but she's not there anymore either, so I can't. I find someone else and I tell them about it. Sometimes I don't want to talk about it at all. Not to anyone, no one at all. I just want to think about it on my own. Sometimes I'm sad and I don't know why. It's just a cloud that comes along and covers me up. Maybe it's because things now aren't the same as they were a few years ago. Like my family. So what happens is that there's a sad place inside me because things aren't the same. But sometimes I find myself remembering things, like Mum in the rain and Eddie laughing and laughing.
Thank you, Tom. I think Michael Rosen describes the messy mix of missing someone very well, the both and of our emotions, the tears and the laughter, the times when we want to talk and the times when we want to remain quiet, the times when we need to be with other people and the times when we want our own space. Sometimes that mix can be confusing and difficult, and to be honest, we would rather not be feeling it. But it does help, I think, to know that others are experiencing it too. And we want you to know that though you may be physically on your own as you watch this, you are not alone. Usually, those who attend our Tree of Light service have opportunity to place their special dedication stars on our Christmas trees in person. But this year, instead, some of our staff here are going to place their stars on our tree and read some words of dedication for all the stars as they do so.
We place this star on the tree to represent our grief. The pain of losing you is intense. It reminds us of the depth of our love for you. We place this star in your memory for the times we laughed, the times we cried, the times we were angry with each other, the silly things you did, the caring and joy you gave to us.
We place this star for our love as we share this time of remembrance. We cherish the special place in our hearts that we reserve for you. We thank you for the gift your living brought to each of us.
Just as stars have a radiance visible on Earth, though they have long been extinct, in the same way there are people special to us who continue to light the world, though they are no longer among the living. Of course, stars can only be seen when it's dark, and I know that at times when I have felt the darkness encroaching or even overwhelming me, if I look outward and upward at the sky, I'm often helped by the sight of the stars and the memory of those who have gone ahead, seeming in some way to light the way forward for me. Denise is going to share with us what gave light to her journey when we cared for her husband, Phil, here at St Catherine's Hospice some years ago.
Thank you for inviting me to share my story at this very special service of remembrance. My husband Phil was a quiet, sensitive man. He had a great sense of humour and would subtly show his personality by wearing statement ties or brightly coloured pyjamas. Phil and I lived in the same area during our childhood and even went to the same primary school. We re-met as teenagers at a youth club, and we were married in 1968. It was a very happy 45 years of marriage, and we had 2 children, Alexander and Ben. Our family had already been through the full experience of coping with cancer before Phil became ill. Our older son, Alexander, was diagnosed with cancer and was treated at the Royal Marsden Hospital for 2 years before he died, aged 21, in 1996. Alexander faced his illness with such positivity. He guided us through that time and allowed us all to face his death together with courage and strength. Phil's diagnosis came as a real shock to us. He was admitted to East Surrey Hospital because he had started to feel unwell, and after some tests, we were given the devastating news that he had late-stage cancer with no treatment paths available to him. The doctors told us that time was short and that we should prepare to say goodbye sooner rather than later. It was as stark as that. In fact, it was only 2 weeks between that diagnosis and end of life. After discovering the news, which Phil took with great dignity and courage, he wanted to return to our home which he so loved, and so we did. We were only home for 2 days before he was admitted to St Catherine's in order to help make him more comfortable. When we arrived at the hospice, I could physically see the huge relief in Phil's body. At home he'd been greatly agitated, but as soon as we were settled at St Catherine's, Phil became so calm. I remember someone pulling up a chair by Phil's bed for me, and as I sat in it, I felt totally calm and comfortable too. I started to relax, knowing the hospice would care for him and that he was in safe hands. The atmosphere at St Catherine's, the gentleness and the kindness were so significant for all the family. Phil especially, of course, but for our son Ben and me as well. The hospice felt like a safety net wrapped warmly around us, and it was reassuring for us to know that Phil would be as comfortable as he could possibly be for as long as he had left. We felt totally at home during our time there. The hospice didn't feel clinical, quite the opposite. It was a lovely, gentle, quiet environment, something that was so appreciated by us all. We were treated as a whole family unit, and the medical staff always knew when it was time to move Phil on to the next stage. They answered our questions truthfully but sensitively, which was so important, and the nurses always took the time to ask Ben and me how we were feeling too. I valued that so much. They took the time to listen to us and made us feel we were the only ones that were important in that moment. Although Phil's diagnosis was so sudden and difficult to get our heads around, being at St Catherine's wasn't all doom and gloom. We enjoyed having drinks from the drinks trolley together, visiting the gardens for a little respite, and we even had time to laugh, smile and talk of happier times. It was satisfying and it was profound. Even though it was very chilly, we took Phil out into the hospice gardens in a wheelchair, which he enjoyed, and we celebrated St George's Day together the day before he died. This we later learnt was a St Catherine's tradition, and I remember everyone was given a red rose. I stayed overnight at the hospice that evening too. I didn't want to sleep, but the nurses made me, and they were there to tell me to come now when it was needed. I trusted them completely. Alexander, in coping with his own illness, had always told us that he felt in his heart that one day everything would be okay, and that gave Phil the strength to face his own death with dignity, peace, and even a little humour. Phil died on the 24th of April 2013. When I saw him, he was dressed in those bright yellow pyjamas, and nurses had placed a red rose between his hands, the same rose he'd been given for St George's Day. That is such a lovely and special memory for me, even 7 years on. During his short time at the hospice, Phil made an impression on everyone he met. He became known for those brightly coloured pyjamas and his courage, humour and cooperation. In fact, I was in a garden centre one day after Phil died, and a doctor came up to me and said, "Excuse me, but aren't you the wife of the gentleman in the brightly coloured pyjamas at St Catherine's?" Of course I told her I was, and she told me that she'd been training at the hospice during Phil's stay and that he'd been a lovely patient. I'm so glad she took the time to come over to me. It made my day to hear that remark, and it really meant something that Phil had made such a nice impression on the staff. Now I support St Catherine's by helping with a gift wrapping service in County Mayo Crawley every Christmas to help raise much needed funds. I have run some gift wrapping workshops for other volunteers, and it's lovely to do that in memory of Phil and to give something back for all the love and care the hospice showed to us. St Catherine's is such a dedicated and worthy charity that benefits local people, and I'd ask people listening and watching here today to think carefully about what would happen if there wasn't a local hospice around. Imagine how different things would be. Hospices need every bit of money and support we can give them. And I know you'll agree that St Catherine's Hospice holds a very special place in so many people's hearts, and that we can support it in whatever way we choose, both now and beyond. I understand why some people don't like thinking about hospices. I know a lot of people think hospices equal death, but there's so much more than that. They equal dedication, reassurance, happiness, support, gentleness, kindness, understanding and patience. Going to St Catherine's is so much more than going in and watching someone you love die. The hospice supports you during the difficult times before death and afterwards too, through therapies and bereavement help. And although hospices are sad places, they can be happy places too. Even though we were only at St Catherine's for a short time, it was profound, and our lasting experience was one of calmness, gentleness, kindness and love. I'll be forever grateful to the hospice for making the last week of Phil's life so calm and as lovely as it could be. I would just like to say how important it was to me that after Phil's death, I could still visit St Catherine's whenever I felt the need to reflect and remember and enjoy the peace and calm that the gardens and the quiet room brought to me, where I could sit uninterrupted with my thoughts and memories of Phil and of course of Alexander too. That has always been a huge comfort, and when all of our lives can return to normal, I pray that it can and will continue. Thank you, St Catherine's, for all that you do. You are simply wonderful. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, Denise, for sharing your story with us. Anyone here who joined us online for our Memory Meadow event back in the summer will remember a song written and performed by my talented friend Sarah Williams. We felt that this song was just too beautiful and too true not to hear it again. So here is Sarah with You Remain.
Where your footsteps fell, and in every story that we tell, in what we say, memories of you abide, ebbing, flowing like the tide. I'll honor you this way. try to live in hope and love in faith, though my heart breaks. They say that grief is not a place, it's a journey that we make. And so I'll bear along my way what you've left, which none can take away, and hold it till the end. These memories, my friends, how can I say you're gone? So much of you lives on. You remain. You remain. You remain.
Thank you, Sarah. Ella is a nurse on our inpatient unit, and she is going to bring us our final reading now. It's an extract from Antoine de Saint-Exupéry's novella, The Little Prince.
All people have stars. For some who are travelers, the stars are guides. For others, they are no more than little lights in the sky. For others, who are scholars, they are problems. But all these stars are silent. You alone will have stars as no one else has them. In one of the stars, I shall be laughing. In one of them, I shall be living. And so it will be as if all stars will be laughing when you look at the sky at night. You, only you, will have stars that can laugh. And when your sorrow is comforted, time eases all sorrows. You will be contented that you have known me. You will always be my friend.
Thank you, Ella. I want to express my thanks to all who have contributed to this service, and to all of you at home for your continued support of us here at St Catherine's Hospice. If you've sent us the name of your loved ones for inclusion into our Book of Remembrance, do take time to look at it by following the link that will appear on the screen in a few moments. And now may you and yours be comforted this Christmas time by the inextinguishable light of love that remains. Go well.
You remain when the noise gives way in the silent spaces of the day. where your footsteps fell, and in every story that we tell, in what we say, memories of you abide, ebbing, flowing like the tide. And while I navigate the pain like a beacon, you still light my way. Show me what is home. You remain in the empty chair, and in all the ways that you're not there. But I'll be brave, I'll honor you this way. Try to live